everybody. This is Sarah Johnson from Appulate. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to go ahead and get started here at the top of the hour, so just hang on with us for a few minutes. We're very happy to have you join us. Thank you again so much, and hang on with us, and we will start the webinar and the training here in just a moment. Alrighty, thank you everybody so much for joining us. Again, this is Sarah with Appulate. Thank you so much for joining us for our training today. I am joined by Scott, who is our Regional ProducerConnect Premium Specialist, who is going to be on the line with us today and going through ProducerConnect Premium features, in addition to the ProducerConnect standard that we will be going over today. So thank you, Scott, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem.
All right, so just a few webinar logistics. Due to the size of the webinar, all attendees will be muted, and we will not be taking questions until the end of the webinar session. But if you do not want to forget your questions, please feel free to enter them in the questions section of the webinar toolbar, as we will be having that Q&A session at the end. The webinar is being recorded, and it will be available for viewing on our YouTube channel. If anybody would like the link to that, you can also put your notification or email in the questions section, and I will be happy to make sure that you get that link. Our training and review today of the Appulate system will run about 45 to 60 minutes. Now, just a few things about Appulate. Appulate started in 2005 in Westlake Village, California. It did start with work comp. Our CTO and CEO saw a need for an automated system for work comp specifically, but since then, now in 2019, we have grown to all commercial lines of business and most personal lines. Appulate is truly here to empower the agent by expanding your markets, automating your workflow, and saving you time and money in the process. Our ProducerConnect standard product, which is the portion that I will be reviewing today, so this essentially is the free version of Appulate. Our partnered markets have essentially paid for you as the agent to use the ProducerConnect standard version. It looks like it was my audio connection. Sorry, guys. Looks like my audio connection had a blip for a second. It's now been restored. So we'll go ahead and move forward. But our ProducerConnect standard product is going to allow you via our Uplink technology to bridge over information from your Accord form, either from your agency management system or a native Accord, which you will see in our demo today, and bridge it over into the Appulate system. That Uplink technology is complementary to any agency management system, so there's no need to rekey any of the Accord data that you have already entered. I'm going to turn it over to Scott for a second so he can talk about our ProducerConnect Premium model, our more robust model of our ProducerConnect.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And again, thank you for joining us, everybody. Our ProducerConnect Premium does have a lot of I like to call it bells and whistles, where it's really going to take the Appulate system and really make, as Sarah mentioned, save you guys time. with not being able to rekey the information. We're going to get into that in our demo a little bit later. But one of the big things is obviously we have a real-time workers' comp rater feature where you can get instantaneous quotes right from the system that will save you time. So again, we all know you get that last-minute phone call or that client that wants to come back or join you guys. You can go ahead and give them an instant quote right away. We also have a loss runner feature that is huge and very popular from the agencies that currently use Appulate, where you're allowed to request, track, and send loss runs right from the system. And so that's obviously a huge time saver, and we'll get into that as well as some of the different forms and the ability to go ahead and fill those out right online, as well as all your supplemental applications. So a lot to get to today, and I know after today you're going to find out, you're going to see, again, the value that it brings and how much time that the system can actually save you. So with that being said, I'm going to send it right back over to Sarah, and she's going to go through some of the standard features.
Thank you, Scott. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get right into some training. I'm going to minimize my PowerPoint here for a second, and I already have my Accord 130 open in the system. And now this is just a native Accord that I have on my desktop. Only an Accord 130. There is nothing else attached to this Accord. It's been filled out on my desktop. However, if you have an agency management system, like I said, the Uplink technology is complementary to any agency management system. So if you originate your Accord forms in your AMS, the print function or the printer driver that is the Uplink tool will still be available in your AMS system. So we want to get this Accord form into the Appulate system, and it's very simple. Once you have Uplink downloaded, I will show you actually where to find Uplink a little bit later in our training. But you'll notice when I click print, the system shows whatever your default printer is. But if you click on the drop-down menu for that, you will notice that Appulate Uplink shows up in your list of printer drivers. So you would simply select Appulate Uplink and click print. There's one other shortcut way that I also like to show. This is that Accord that we were working on right here. If you simply right-click on that Accord form, you will notice that Uplink shows up as a shortcut feature. So we're going to go ahead and select Uplink. Either way you get to it, whether it's through the shortcut like I had just shown, or the printer function feature, the result is going to be the same. The system's going to have you validate your Appulate credentials. You only need to enter them in one time, and the system will remember them for the future. So now we can go ahead and hit send. As soon as you do so, Appulate will open up in a new link. You'll notice that the system is defaulting to work comp because it's trying to read the line of business that we are attempting to work on based off of the Accord form that we have uplinked. Now, if for some reason this wasn't work comp, or we wanted to maybe put work comp in a package, you'll notice that this is actually a drop-down menu. So any other additional lines of business that could possibly be applicable to that particular Accord form will populate here. In this instance, it is work comp that we are working on, so we're simply going to select work comp and keep it that way and click on continue. Appulate will then default to the master Q&A section. And this is where the meat of our submission is going to occur. However, to the left of your actual submission tab, you can see this right up here, it's highlighting Gold Apple Nursery. This is the profile, the master profile for your insurer. So this information will come up for every single line of business that you work on. This tab will stay the same, but right next to that will be your submission tab. So we're going to go back to the work comp submission and actively begin working on it. We're also going to go over these tools tabs before we get started. I find that they are important because the system is live and dynamic. So you'll want to see what exactly that they do in terms of running through your submission. So the first one that we're going to go over is the forms section. And you can see that the section has already changed. This is our Accord 130 that we had started with. But based off of the line of business that we selected, a 125 now accompanies this particular submission. Automatically, the system knew that it needed to add that Accord, so it has done so. And any duplicate information from this Accord 130 has now been bridged over to this 125. If there were any other applicable Accord forms that were available for the line of business that you're working on, simply click on Available Forms, and it will open up a list of any other available Accord forms. If you needed to select, say, the Accord 130, for instance, you would do so. The information has automatically been bridged over to that 133. But if you needed to hide Accords for any reason, the function is essentially the same. So you would deselect that Accord form, and it will hide it from the view. Next is the Loss Runs tab, and I'm not going to go too deep into this quite yet. I'm actually going to let Scott show you our Loss Runner feature. So just know that I will revisit this section actively in our submission a little bit later, and then Scott is going to touch on our Loss Runner tool when he does his portion of this today. But just know that because we did have previous insurer history on our Accord form, that information has automatically been added to the loss history section or the loss run section of our submission. If you needed to edit this information for any reason, you can just by clicking on Edit Insurance History, and you will see the available editable sections just right here. Next is the Documents tab. Now, the Documents tab is going to be applicable for any Appulate style submission market. So those are going to be markets that have the little Appulate clover next to their name, that when I actually go to add a market, you'll see that icon here pretty shortly. But just know, for Appulate style submission markets, if you have any documents that you would like to send to your underwriter, this is where you would do so. You drop them directly in the system because Appulate style submission markets are fully integrated with Appulate. So those markets are also using a version of Appulate to provide agents like you with quotes. So, work comp, for example, so you have an XMOD worksheet that you would like to send over to your agent or send over to your underwriter, rather. This is where you would drop that file. You can also select from any file, maybe on your desktop. Next is the Notes section, and this is also applicable to Appulate style submission markets only. There are two parts to this. The Notes section, the shared notes are notes that are shared with your underwriter. So if you have a narrative that you would like to send to your Appulate style submission underwriter, this is where you would enter that. Or say you're following up on the status of a quote, this is where you would do that. I'm just going to go ahead and enter in a test note and click Add, because I do want to show you that any notes that are entered within the Appulate system are time-stamped. So you know exactly who entered that note and when they entered that note. Next, right next to the shared notes section is the private notes section. So the private notes are just for you as the agent. Private notes are not shared with your underwriter. The private notes section is also a great place for internal chatter. So say you are a producer working on a submission with a CSR, and you have prepped a submission, but you have paused because you're waiting on loss runs. You can simply enter in that note. So if someone else was to hop into your submission to see where you stopped and take a look at any notes that you may have left, they can easily see that note there. That leads me now to the Activities tab, which is just a full time-stamped log of everything that's gone on so far with a particular submission. You'll see if we hit the Show Updates section, you'll see in the comment section, you'll see that note for waiting on loss runs. So I always recommend, if you are hopping into a submission, maybe that you are working on with somebody else, or a submission that you haven't taken a look at in a while, look at your Activities tab so you know exactly where maybe yourself or the other person has left off. Last but not least is the Options tab. So it's important to remember that if you are the producer or CSR that uplinks an Accord form into the Appulate system first, you will be that default person that submission is assigned to. So if you need to add an additional producer or CSR, you would do so from these little drop-down menus. Depending on your designation within Appulate, you will populate either as that producer or as the CSR. If you have any questions as to what your status might be, I would locate whoever the admin is for your office so they can take a look at that for you. You can also email me and I can take a look at what that would be for you and let you know. My contact information as well as Scott's contact information will be available at the end of our presentation today. So we're going to go back to our master Q&A section now, and I'm going to add my first two markets that are going to represent our ProducerConnect standard markets. So to add markets is really simple. You're going to go ahead and click the little add market button. It's going to give you a drop down list of markets from your selected market list. These would be markets that I have already moved over, or someone in my office has already moved over from available to selected. So these are markets that take this particular line of business, being work comp, so that we can go ahead and select our markets going forward. So we're going to choose Westlake GA as our first market. Now I need to add an additional market. I'm going to minimize this for a second, and I'll go into submarkets in a second, but I'm going to add one more market. So I'm going to click on the add market button again, and we're going to choose Arrowhead. So our Westlake GA market, as you can see, there's a little Appulate style clover next to the market name. That means this particular market is fully integrated with Appulate. So those markets are also using a version of Appulate to provide agents like you with quotes. So you do not have to leave the system at all to obtain a quote or request a bind. Everything is done directly within the Appulate system, including any communications. Now, you'll notice that next to Arrowhead, there is a different icon, which is the green-like globe. It's actually, I call it more of the plain globe versus the more colorful globe that is the web link style icon, which Scott will talk about a little bit later. But the web links, or the e-submission style markets, are markets that still have, or that have a portal that they want to continue using, and that's absolutely fine. These markets are still partners of Appulate, but they're going to use their own portal that requires credentials. It's absolutely fine. So the system is going to take the information from the Appulate system and bridge it over to that carrier portal. So anything that's duplicate has automatically been entered, and now we'll go through each of these processes. So next to the Appulate style submission market, you'll notice that there is a little arrow just to the left. If you click on that, it's going to open up a list of sub-markets. So you as the agent have the freedom to select the various markets that you want this particular GA to approach on your behalf. I'm going to go ahead and select Encino for the purposes of our demo today. And you'll notice this little lightning bolt icon, which I haven't talked about yet. The lightning bolt icon means that this particular API is live within the Appulate system. So these markets, as long as our submission checks out, are going to be able to provide us with an instant bindable quote. So we've selected Encino for the purposes of our demo today. And then we're going to move our view over to the middle of the screen. We are getting a little red D for decline. If you hover over it, it's going to give you a list of live and dynamic links that you can click on that will take you directly to the sections that need to be addressed. Now, I'm just getting this declination because I have done this training a couple of other times today. So I just have to give the system an FEIN that it likes. And you'll notice that as soon as I do, I get a little informational pop-up to the right-hand side of the screen. Now just telling me that my submission is so far accepted, but we do need to answer some missing and required questions in order to proceed. So you may continue using the live and dynamic links provided here, or you may notice that next to the tabs down in these underwriting sections, there are numbers next to those tabs. And these are just saying, you know, in the subject section, there's one missing and required question that must be addressed before you can proceed. So you would simply scroll through that section, find the question with the red indicator next to it, go ahead and answer it. As soon as you do, the indicator disappears. In this instance, the number has now disappeared, and that question no longer shows up in the live and dynamic links list. So it doesn't really matter which way you get the questions answered, whether it's through the live and dynamic links or through the tabs. The answers are going to get answered. So it's going to, the questions rather are going to get answered. So it really just comes down to your preferred workflow as an agent. One other really nifty thing that I like to show is there is a way to condense or hide all of the questions that you have already answered. So if you're one of those types of agents that just likes a really clean view and you only want to see what is left to be answered, you can simply select the required unanswered questions only box. You will then notice that all of the questions that you have already answered have now been eliminated, and only the questions that still remain show up in the system. So we're just going to go through and answer these final missing and required questions so we can finalize our submission. Alrighty, so now we have an informational box that's telling us that no more questions are left to be answered. If you wanted to deselect the required unanswered questions only box, it will just pop up with everything that you've already answered, but there's nothing left to answer in this case. However, notice that our orange A for accepted is still telling us that we need to attach loss runs. You can actually do this in one of two ways. Folks who are used to using the Appulate system, you may still use the way where you click on the loss runs tab and you click on the little clip to upload loss runs from a file that you may have on your desktop. But we have added a live and dynamic link to this little loss runs box. So if you hover over that letter indicator, click on request for loss runs, the box will now instantly pop up no matter what tab that you're on. So feel free to utilize that way as well. So we're just going to choose some loss runs that I have on my desktop for this insured. We're going to confirm that it's loss runs that we're adding. And you'll see that those loss runs have been time-stamped here in the Appulate system. Now we have a green A, which means our risk is good to go. So now all that's left to do is to click on the submit button. But I do want to briefly talk about the estimated premium column and the status bar before I actually click on submit. So you'll notice that there is a little hyperlink with the estimated premium column. The estimated premium is based off of the carrier's public rate filing. So if Appulate has information for the carrier's public rate filing in the system based off of the risk that you entered, an estimated premium will pop up in this box. If you select that, it will give you a breakdown of how the system came up with that particular rate for this risk. It will tell you that this is just an estimate based off of the carrier's public rate filing, and we do need to formally request a quote before moving forward. But if you want to see how your markets stack up before you actually click on that submit button, that's a great way to do so. All right, so I like to talk about the status bar for just a second because I have a lot of new agents who are starting to use Appulate that will get to this point where they get the nice little green A for accepted and we have our green submit button, but for some reason, folks will stop. Now, it's really important to actually click on the submit button so this risk gets sent to Westlake GA so we can get an instant bindable quote for Encino. If you are ever wondering what the status of your quote is, take a look at your status bar. If it says not submitted yet, then you clearly have not submitted. If it says request in progress, and it's been a couple of days, you may want to contact your underwriter, which you can do so through the notes tab. You do not want to contact Appulate directly on the status of a quote. We will direct you to your underwriter because we are not providing you with the agent with the quote. The underwriters are providing you with the quote. So make sure that you are communicating with your Appulate file submission underwriters via the Notes tab. So now we're going to go ahead and click on the Submit button, and you'll see in just a second that my status bar is going to change to Quote Prepared, and we now have an instant bindable quote from Encino via Westlake GA for this particular risk. You can see right here that the status says Quote Prepared. However, notice that my request to bind box is orange, and if I hover over it, the system is telling me that if I wanted to request a bind, I would have to get an appointment with this market. So Westlake GA, for the purposes of our training, is an open brokerage. So they have allowed us to request a quote without having an appointment with them yet. So for some Appulate style submission markets, so only markets with the clover next to their name, we act as the signature and document liaison for their appointment process. But this is only for markets that have a clover next to it. It's really important to remember that. I get a lot of questions about that. Appulate does not grant any appointments, nor are we a part of any commissions conversations. Those are all questions that you will want to send to your markets directly. But if you want to request an appointment from certain markets, you'll notice that this option is available. So if we clicked on the request to bind, you'll see that the get appointed process is available for you. A couple of other things we can do with our quote. If you click on the little three dots to the right-hand side of the screen, you can send this via email to your insured if you'd like. There is also a send to sign option, which is allowing me to send this proposal to your insured for digital signature. Now, as soon as you clicked on Send to Sign, you would choose an applicant from a drop-down menu and then click OK. It will then instantly send your insured an email with a clickable link. They would simply select that link. It will then open up either on their computer, iPad, phone, whatever is most convenient for them to sign at. They do not have to create a username, nor do they have to create a password. So they simply click on that link, let the document load, digitally sign. As soon as they click Finalize, that signed document is automatically uploaded into the Appulate system. You are notified via email of that signature so that you can then get back into the Appulate system and then maybe click Bind and finalize that process. But you will not have to upload the document separately. It'll just automatically be loaded in the Appulate system. So that's an Appulate style submission. We're going to now take a look at the e-submission market. We're going to go ahead and again click on the little drop down. I'm going to select some sub-markets so we can go through and bridge over our submission. So these particular markets, you know, the e-submission style markets require credentials. So you need to make sure that you enter your credential information into Appulate once you've moved your markets over from available to selected. You do so just by clicking on your name at the top right-hand side of the screen. I'm actually going to go ahead and show you this right now because I get a lot of questions about it. So if you click on your name at the top right-hand side of the screen, all of the markets that have been moved over from available to selected and require credentials will show up here so that you can then enter your credential information to submit to those markets. I do recommend doing this before you start submitting with an Appulate so that all of your information is already in there and you don't have to worry about it later. So we're just going to go back to our insured. I'm going to choose work comp from the dropdown. And we're going to go ahead and click on Submit to merge this information and bridge it over to that carrier portal. So we're going to click on Submit, and in just a second, underneath the Actions tab, there's going to be a button that says Complete Submission. You also notice that the status has been changed to Submission Initiated, meaning that this particular submission is ready to actually bridge over to the carrier portal. So as soon as I click on Complete Submission, it's going to open up a new window. The system is automatically logging me into that carrier portal that I'm already used to using. It has already created the insured profile, and it's already screen scraped all of the duplicate information from the Appulate system to the carrier portal. This is the carrier portal that you're already used to working with. I do like to point out that there may be some information that is specific to that carrier that may not have been duplicate in the Appulate system. So make sure you are scrolling through your submission, answering any additional missing and required questions. You would then click through your screen and obtain your quote as you're used to obtaining it. Now, any communications or binding processes will occur in the normal fashion that you're used to having them occur in. However, I do highly recommend that you bring any quotes obtained outside of Appulate back into the Appulate system so that all of your submissions and quotes are managed in one centralized location. It will also keep your extensive reporting features available within Appulate accurate. And to upload a quote is very simple. You would just simply click on Upload Quote. You would choose a file from your documents list, and then once you uploaded a quote, it would change your status to quote prepared. You would then have the option to, of course, email that quote outside of the Appulate system to your insured if you needed to. So that is the ProducerConnect standard model of Appulate. So essentially, like I said, the free version of the system. So the ProducerConnect standard markets are partners of Appulate. Those are in-network markets. But I'm going to now flip it over to Scott to show additional available features within Appulate and show you how submissions work with partners that, or markets rather, that are not partners of Appulate. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share for just a second. And Scott, I'm going to flip it over to you.
Sounds good, Sarah.
There you go.
All right. Well, as Sarah mentioned, again, we just went through the kind of the standard edition of Appulate, and it has a lot of great features for it. But what I'm going to do is we're going to add some additional markets here. So Within here, I'm just going to add AM Trust, and we're going to add our ACE America here. And just as Sarah told you, is that you can always know how you're submitting the business within Appulate by the different icons. So again, the clover with the lightning bolt, that's the Appulate style submission. We have our e-submission over here, but the two that I'm going to go over here is web links. So as Sarah mentioned, these are portals. Again, they haven't yet decided to partner with us, but we have access to them that you're able to really save you a lot of time by getting your information that you uploaded within the Accords on over to the carriers. So for AM Trust, if I would like to go ahead and do that, all I need to do is click on the Submit button. And what it's going to do, it's going to bring me directly out to the AM Trust website. Again, it's going to log me in automatically. And where Sarah mentioned, this is where you would put in your specific login credentials that it does have within the system. And it's just taking a moment here for everything to kind of load within the system. But as you'll see here in a minute, is that all I really need to do is click one time on the system in order to go ahead and, there we go, let's see that. There we go. So all I'm doing right now is clicking Create New Quote. And all that information that was on the Accords is coming directly on over into the system for you. So it's acting as a bridge, but again, I'm not typing anything right now, and you'll see that the screen is about to fill in all that information, there it goes, that was in my Accord forms. Again, Sarah and I both know you guys are busy. Everybody on this call is busy. We've been in the insurance industry, emails, phone calls, clients stopping in, webinars. Your time is consuming, and filling out applications can be a very mundane task. What Appulate really helps you to do is it takes all that information that you already gathered in the system and now that you have in your Accords, and you can bring it on over into the various carriers that have this web link technology. And then I would just, again, fill in any additional information that may need be. Again, maybe my Accords weren't as complete as they should be, where some of this information wasn't filled in. But again, I can go through the information here and obtain a quote that way. So AM Trust works like this. We partnered with Travelers, Hartford, CNA. All these are web link style submissions that are going to really save you guys a lot of time going forward, where you're not having to re-enter the information over and over and over again. It also helps you from eliminating errors. Re-entering that information can be a very mundane task. And again, when your mind's in a million different directions, where our minds have a tendency to wander, mistakes happen. We're humans. The system really helps eliminate those mistakes from being put in, and again, helps reduce that E&O exposure that you do have. So that is our web link technology. And our final way that we can submit business is on our email style submission. So it's a little bit different than what Sarah went through, which is that e-submission. Basically, if any carrier can receive emails, we can use them within Appulate to go ahead and submit that business to them. So if I click on the Submit button, what's great is what you're going to see here is all my information was brought over. Here are my Accords, my supplementals, my loss runs. Anything can go ahead and be put in here. If I needed to add existing policies, add existing applications, upload photos, I can all do that throughout the system. I also have the ability here to send the underwriter some information. Maybe I want to point out about a location that they just added, or something different, or something that may raise their attention as they go through the applications. I can do that all within the area down here where I can contact the underwriter. A feature I really like is this scheduling feature. I don't need to tell anybody on the phone how important it is to block markets. We never want our competition getting access to some of these accounts that we've worked so hard for. Within the email submission style, you have the ability to schedule this submission out. So if I wanted this app to be in my underwriter's inbox on September 1st, 2019 at 12:01 a.m. before anybody else can submit it, I can schedule it all through the Appulate system, which is great. And again, all my forms, all my figures are attached within that. So again, I now block that market and I can move on as far as renewing that piece of business, a huge time saver feature for you. So those are the 4 different ways that we can submit business within Appulate. They're actually very easy to use. Again, it just takes a few times to click through them, but with the web links specifically, they're being transferred on over to the carrier's website where all that information is being put in for you. And again, with the email style submissions, the apps and supplementals are being brought in, and I have the ability to schedule that application out there. So again, I can go ahead and block that market. So another feature I want to talk about, and one of our most popular features with the premium, is loss runs. And so I'm going to come over here to my loss runs tab, and I just know I've been in the insurance industry 18 years, and 15 of those years I worked at an agency. And our agency really never had a great way of requesting loss runs. Everybody kind of did it themselves. And with our loss runner tool, this allows you to request, track, and send loss run information on the behalf of your insured after they sign it. So what I did here, as long as you have the carrier and the policy number, once I go ahead and put that in there, it's going to generate this form. And again, here's that letter of authorization that's going to be generated for me. And here's my client's information that's been brought over from the Accord. You'll notice that we have these little edit icons that I can edit the information if I need to update it for any reason. Here's the specific carrier it's going to go to. It's going to go directly to their loss run department. I either can send it to them via fax, or down here we have the ability to send it via email. So that's also a nice comparison. So depending on how the carrier likes to receive it, we can make the system do it that way. Here's the policies and the periods that I'm requesting. So I only put in the 2018 for our example here, but if I wanted to add additional years, I would do the same thing, put in the policy number, and then get those requests for 3, 5 years, how many ever years that you're requesting it for. And here's also my contact information. So here's where my insured's information would be placed in here, and I have the ability to go ahead and edit that at any time as well. A nice feature that we do have is this follow-up feature. So once the loss runs are sent, your insured can sign off on them electronically throughout the system, which is great, but also we can follow up with them on them. So, okay, 7 days, 5 days later, I can have the system remind me to, if I haven't heard from my insured yet, maybe send them a quick note. Hey, did you receive those loss runs from Agora West yet? When you do, send them to me, and then I can upload them directly within the system. So our loss runner feature really streamlines that approach, allows you to make it a very easy process for you. Also, what it allows you to do is that, as I said, all you need to request loss runs is the policy and the policy period and the carrier, which I can do over here. So again, I'll put in my market, my policy period, but what is great here is, again, I don't need to tell anybody that if an insured calls the agency and says, hey, can you give me a copy of my loss runs? It's probably a good sign that saying, hey, he's shopping me around. He's going to another carrier. He's getting another insured. He's getting another quote. And you can do the same thing. I'm sure that's the hard part of winning business is having them go to their current insured. And again, they're going to go into kind of redemption mode to try to save that piece of business. Once you get a prospect and you need those loss runs, you can have them being able to get them through the Appulate system. So as I said, all you need to know is with that prospect, you just need to know the carrier and the policy number, and you can request those loss runs on that prospect's behalf via the system, which is huge. They never have to go to their current agent. They never have to put that agent on notice that they're shopping around, and you can do that through our system, which is great. So that is another policy premium feature that we do have within the system. So those are some of the features that we do have with here. Again, we welcome any questions, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it right back on over to Sarah, and she's going to continue with the webinar here. So.
Thank you, Scott.
No problem. Let me go ahead and get you back here.
I got it, Scott. We're good. Okay. All right, just making sure everybody can see my screen. I do want to go over where to find some additional training in Appulate, and it's going to be a little bit of a repeat because my slides do have this information as well, but I want to actively show you from within the Appulate system. So when you're logged into Appulate and you go to the Help tab, you find from that drop-down menu, there is a training button. And if you click on Start Appulate e-learning course, it will take you to our Appulate e-learning course. This is brand new as of 2019. Go ahead and click on Start e-learning course, and you'll see that this is a self-paced training for the Appulate system. You can click through individual sections if you'd like, but I highly recommend that every agent take advantage of this e-learning course to get that hands-on training with the Appulate system. You know, everybody's learning styles are slightly different, and webinars like this are absolutely fantastic. But I hear from agents all the time who have questions about, do you have an e-learning course? Do you have something that's hands-on? And the answer is yes. Just make sure, like I said, you do go to that Help tab, you choose training from the drop-down menu, and then you start that e-learning course. You may take this as many times as you want. It's always going to be available. Also, in that Help section, in the video tutorial section, you have a library of videos in regards to things you can do with Appulate, from short 1 to 2 minute featured videos on how to do certain things in Appulate, like you know, where to access Passwords Manager, or maybe you're a ProducerConnect premium agency and you have questions on how to use Loss Runner. These short 1 to 2 minute videos will go a very long way. Of course, you can always feel free to reach out to us on the Appulate team to help you out with any questions. I always like to show that you do also have access to any training webinars just like this for Appulate. Actually, this webinar will be available on this page a little bit later today, in addition to our YouTube page, but I wanted to show you where to locate that as well. So we've gone through kind of where to locate our e-learning and where to take a look at the training available within the Appulate system. Also, you can go to the Appulate website, just underneath the ProducerConnect tab, so appulate.com. Click on ProducerConnect, and you have access to our market directory underneath our key features. Also, take a look at what other upcoming webinars we have available. And now I'm going to throw up mine and Scott's contact information on the screen, and we're going to go ahead and start taking any questions. So if anybody has questions in regards to the system or Appulate, feel free to put them into the question section. I think I do have a couple already. It looks like I have some requests for the web link, or the YouTube link rather. I will make sure that those agents requesting that link do get that link. I think there was a question in regards to New York specific markets. So this training isn't for New York specific markets. It's for Appulate in general. But regardless of the state that you're in, the workflow for Appulate for any submission style is going to be the same. Your state does not change how you enter information into the Appulate system. There is now a question about loss runs. So do the loss runs come back to us? Meaning, I'm guessing as you as the agent. It all depends on the request type that you choose in the Appulate system. So make sure that when you do pull up that loss runner feature, that you are choosing the proper request type. There's a drop-down menu available at the top. I believe Scott went over in regards to the different request type. Just make sure you're choosing the right request type for your insured situation. The loss runs do come back to you or as the agent, or they will come back to your insured, depending on the request type that you send out to your insured. Question about getting a copy of the recording. It will be accessible on the Appulate website within the next couple of hours, but it will also be available on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube link is actually just youtube.com/Appulate, but I'm happy and will be sending out links to the training to several agents who have requested that. So if you are one of those, please feel free to throw up your email and I will make sure that a copy of that gets to you as well. Again, to the duplicate question about access to the recording of the webinar, it will be available on youtube.com/Appulate, APPULATE. Okay, so it looks like there was a question about appointments. So Appulate does not step in the middle of any appointment processes, nor are we a part of any commissions conversation. So if a market, in fact, requires an appointment prior to you obtaining a quote, you will still need to go through that market's appointment process. However, if a market that you're quoting with is an open brokerage model, so that is 100% going to be an Appulate style submission market, but if that market doesn't require you have an appointment first, then you can't, you can obtain a quote without actually having an appointment with that market. Appulate is actually adding an open brokerage list that's going to launch next week on our website. So you'll be able to go to appulate.com and click on ProducerConnect and view the different open brokerages that are available within the Appulate system. So be on the lookout for that launch. It does go live on the website, I believe, on Monday. Do we have any other questions today? All right, I'll keep my eye out for the questions tab. I'm going to leave mine and Scott's contact information up here. There was a question in terms of pricing. So if you do have questions about pricing, please contact Scott. His information is on the screen. Scott will be able to provide you with that information. So any questions in regards to pricing, please contact Scott and he will help you out with that. Thank you all so much for attending our webinar today. Like I said, I'm going to leave mine and Scott's information up on the screen for another few minutes. And any additional questions, please feel free to put them in the questions section. And like I said, any questions about ProducerConnect Premium or pricing, please utilize Scott's contact information and he will be able to provide you with pricing.
Yep, thank you for joining everybody, and thank you very much for all your time, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much for being on this call today, Scott. We really appreciate it.
No problem, Sarah. Take care.
You too. Thank you, everybody, again, for joining. Like I said, this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Appulate. And those who have asked for a link to the webinar, I will be sending those over to you as soon as this is available on our YouTube channel. So if there are no more questions, I am going to close out our webinar for the day. So again, on behalf of Appulate, thank you so much for attending our ProducerConnect webinar today. We really appreciate it. Thank you all so much, and you have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.